Is this thing on? Boy, this thing is blurry. What is the deal? What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. It's Tuesday, by the way. So, figured I would chat with you guys. Wanted to get y'all's take on something, y'all's ideas. So, here's the thing. We talk a lot about what we would wish Mopar would put out there. We've heard all these rumors about the CUDA. You hear all these things about, they finally released the TRX. What would you guys actually like to see Mopar do into this, abyss that we seem to be in with really nothing on the horizon? Yeah, we got the TRX coming, but there's really not the jazz that you would think you would find for that thing. Mark Corleone's in saying, get into with the arm flex. I like it. But the thing is that what do you do? Like, what would you prefer to see Mopar put out there? But again, Eric saying, what's up, man? Saying, hello, Professor B. Anthony G's checking in. Kobe Warren got the arm flex. I like it. Good job, Kobe. TU's in saying, B. Mason in the building. I'd love to see a real effort in developing a Gen 6 Viper. See, that's what I'm talking about. When I was talking about, what would I like to see Mopar do? What I would like to see Mopar, FCA, Dodge, just the brand in general. We're talking about the brand. What I would like to see them do is do something that would, make things a little bit more like they used to be. What with the Viper being so dominant. But this time make it accessible to everybody. The Challenger has been fantastic, and the Charger stands alone in terms of its place in the marketplace. But the problem that you run into is that, well, quite honestly, there's no competition for them. You look at the Challenger versus the Mustang, that's not a good matchup. They always say, styles make fights, and it's a sloppy looking go at it, right? There's no competition for the Charger at all, realistically, in the marketplace, unless you go Euro and you start looking at, body count, already won for the night. Nice little jab, by the way. Unless you start going the Euro route, but then the price disparity is so great that you just can't really compare the two. So I guess the question that I'm asking tonight is, number one, what would you like to see Mopar put together? What would you like to see Dodge as a brand throwing out there? I've got a couple of ideas. And of course, that TU and I are thinking, got that mind meld going because it's circling around the Viper. Number one, Dodge has got to get a Halo car out there, but they need a new brand identity. Look, I get it. The Hellcat, it set the bar. It's always going to be the yardstick until there's a new yardstick, right? I mean, best is only best until better shows up to the party, right? So I just don't know that there's going to be a better when it comes down to, street cred, drag strip, whatever. Hellcat kind of has that in a controlled environment, but who's catching it really on the street, right? Well, it's the Corvettes. Corvettes have always done the best, either in roll racing, with closed circuit racing. You can play around with them and make them a decent drag race car, but the reality is that the Corvette has the broadest base. It has the broadest appeal, and it does one other thing. It appeals not only to a broad base, just in terms of folks that can look at it and appreciate it, but leading up to the C8, which I'm going to get on here in a second, leading up to the C8, it had the broadest appeal in terms of affordability, accessibility. It was kind of like that girl next door. A little bit too hot for her own good, but kind of a low rent proposal. I mean, you could have fun with it. It was just as easy to see yourself with a Corvette as it would have been for pretty much any other car. It was attainable. But now that the Corvette isn't, it put itself into the position that the Viper was in. Beginning, I guess, when Viper began, but realistically, when you start looking at the Gen 2 GTS, That's really what you're looking at. A car that was realistically overpriced, a little bit too much like a tractor with a big engine. And I can say all those things because I've owned not one, not two, but three of these things. Look, yeah, overpriced and other things that are going not necessarily that great for it. But here's the thing, that's kind of where the C8 is now. It's not quite as good as the outgoing C7 in some respects. Handling could be a bit different. And not that it's worse, it's just different, right? So it's going to take guys a little bit to get used to some of the certain nuances, but it's suffering kind of the same issues that the Vipers did with the little bit more aggressive understeer, things like that. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Fact of the matter is that it's occupying the same real estate that the Viper was occupying for a long time when you take cost into consideration. So because of that, this is a great opportunity, market conditions notwithstanding, but this is a great opportunity for FCA to say, look, we can create this brand in Viper that would take the place of that C7, that C7 Z06, that C7 ZR1. These are areas where, quite honestly, if I'm being perfectly clear and transparent, don't like the C8. I think I'm one of the few that got really hyped over it, saw it, didn't really fall in love with it, and then almost felt guilty that I didn't fall in love with it. And that's kind of the topic for another video, but getting back to it, the C7 is really good. With one drawback, the C7 Stingray, probably not my flavor. It's just, there's some things about that car, the way that it stance, the way the body, all of that, it's all absolutely subjective, has no objective reality here. But from a subjective standpoint, C7 Stingray, C7 Grand Sport, now we're talking. Z06, be still. I love the C7 Z06, one of my favorite cars to drive. So when you start looking at it from that point of view, wouldn't it be, something's got to slip in there. Something that's going to cost $55,000, $65,000, $75,000. Somewhere in those price ranges, that's what can slide these folks that really honestly can't afford the, what is it, 80-something thousand dollars that the new Corvette C8 realistically costs. And I get it. 65 grand for the poverty pack. Listen, I got news for you. If you can find one of those things, pick it up, because it's going to be freaking rare to say the least. They're just not going to make, and they're not simply making, at least from what I can tell, a ton of those cars. Okay, let me just sidebar this and say, I've seen a lot now of the C8 Corvettes running around. I've only seen one, I'm going to get that sucker. I've only seen one GT500, and that was for a split second. So I know that the C8s are selling. I know that they're quick on the drag strip, or at least quick enough. But it's just not really, it's not turning me on just yet. I'd like to see Mopar do something, capture that market share, really latch on to not just the guys, but the girls as well. Make the car accessible, make it fun, make it super fast, but most importantly, make it affordable. Snatch that freaking banner away from Corvette if you can, and this is your one chance to do it. So, at any rate, that's the first one that I'd like to see. Ruben's checking in saying, what's happening, B Mace? Got the arm flex and the thumbs up. I like it. Bald guy with the shades. Watching from NorCal. Ah, man, I miss NorCal. Joshua Lambert's checking in and said, hey, B, how's it going tonight? Man, it's going good, man. I hope it's going well for you, too. Peter McLeod saying, I'd like to see Mopar bring back the 440. Well, it'd be in the guise of a Hemi. A lot of guys are having some success with that 440. The only downside to that would be warranty and possibly some longevity issues, but you can always engineer a slightly taller deck and make that thing work. Let's see if they've ever had the idea to do it. Now would be the perfect time. Well, I guess when the 1320 was being tossed around, that would have been the perfect time. And really, a 426 is even easier to warrant. Plus, Mopar's already done it with the drag pack options, which would have included an aluminum block. So, yeah, here's mud in your eye, Mopar fan. But no, I agree with you. Make a more powerful NA engine. There's another one. Yep. The thing is it also needs to be a bit more refined. If I'm being honest, it needs to have an aluminum block. Now, for a lot of folks, they're going to say, no, Hellcat needs to have an iron block. And I would agree with that, primarily because of stability. Iron block is simply going to be more robust given the power levels. Leave the Hellcat engine alone. But for the NA guys, need to start seeing an aluminum block. I mean, that should come really as a no-brainer. I mean, what with all of the LS variants that go into cars practically have an aluminum block, that's the only other thing that you have to compare it to unless you're going to talk about the Coyote. Here we go again with that. But I think you guys know where I'm going with it. Bring in an aluminum block. Queasy saying, sweet surprise stream. Got the arm flex like and saying, always love a good Mopar chat in the background. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Queasy saying, as far as what I would like to see from Dodge is a more cool stuff for lower trim models, performance, etc. And I guess some added interior stuff. More decal designs like the 70s models. Man, I tell you what, that would be a lot of fun. Bring back some of the strobe stripes and stuff like that. I like that idea. You know, I tell you something, it's funny too that we haven't seen that yet because that was such a calling card for Mopar back in the late 60s and early 70s. I mean, in fact, you really couldn't, I don't think you could call yourself a member of the Scat Pack or the Rapid Transit Authority if you didn't have that livery. So, no, I agree with you 100%. And if you're going to do it and if you're going to sell it, go all the way. So, yeah, I get that. No doubt about it. Shawnee's saying, midweek with the Mace. What's up? What's up, Sean? Good to see you, brother. Shawnee's checking in, too, saying, with the contribution to the cause, saying, one C8 and no GT500 at drag strip yet. Disappointed. Yeah. You know what's funny, too? Of the C8s that I have seen, I've only seen one really run in any anger at the drag strip one time, and that was at a rental with Earhart's car. So I don't know. And that's been a while back. You just don't see them that often, again, which is a bit of a shame, to say the least. But thank you, brother. Appreciate the contribution to the cause. Make sure I'm not forgetting. Colby, did I forget about you? Sorry, man. Got the 3 arm flexes. I like it. Didn't see that up there. Maybe I did say something. I don't know. I went off on a tangent. I'll forget what I freaking just said 10 minutes ago, too. Let's see. Oh, some Ferrari guy saying, I love my C6. I wanted to hold on to it and get a C8 in 3 to 4 years on the used market, but I'm never going to be able to afford even a used one at 60 grand-ish, 3 to 4 years. So I went back to Mustang. See, and that's part of the problem. Okay, so look, part of the key issue that a lot of folks have with the new Corvette is that it is passed you by. Let me just roll with me for a second, guys. Back in the day, Corvette was always a working man's halo car, so to speak. If you had a full-time gig and you wanted to take, let's say, a couple of extra shifts a month, work a little bit of overtime, take on a new account or something like that, take over a new account, whatever it might have been, you could afford that Corvette. A little bit of overtime and it was covered if you had a full-time job. That was basically the delta between normal car and Corvette, was some amount of overtime. Nowadays, it's not like that at all. And especially when you consider just how expensive the new cars are. Never mind the number. The number is irrelevant for this part of the conversation. It could be $100, right? But if you make $200 a year, it just doesn't make sense. The way to afford it just starts to go away really quickly. In other words, modern cars eat up way more of your hourly dollars than they used to. And again, when they moved away from that, that's really when I lost my love for Corvette. I grew up riding in a Corvette, big block convertible 69 Corvettes, my dad's car. That's what I grew up riding in. And the problem is that you can't have that anymore. And that's a shame. You know, I've had two Vettes, and for somebody like me, that is almost like you'd have thought, what? I mean, I should have a whole parking lot full of them, based on how, you know, my background and upbringing, just being around this stuff for so long. But it never, especially with the C8, it never really, because of that, I guess, stepping away from the working man and from the working gal that is into these cars, because keep in mind, Corvette sales, a significant portion of them are female. Let's say it's 30%, because I don't know the number off the top of my head, but 30% sounds like a lot, and it seems reasonable. There's a lot of girls that love Corvettes, and you're keeping them from having their dream too. So I just can't stick with Vettes anymore. T saying a 5 1/4, 500 torque, 392 would also be nice. In a revamped Scat Pack Challenger body with deeper gears and at least a 200-pound weight cut. So absolutely agree with that. What I would like to see for the NA guys, so we talked about the Viper, but what I'd like to see for the NA guys, number one, aluminum block. It's time. We've been playing around with these iron blocks now long enough, and yes, they're very stable, very strong, whatever, but look, it can't be cost prohibitive to make an aluminum block. What with every LS powered sedan and sports car having an aluminum block. People aren't buying anything with a 392 because they need it. They're buying it because they want it. So give people what they want. And if it costs an extra $500, I'm fine with spending an extra $500 plus a profit margin just to have a better bit of kit, right? So yeah, aluminum block for sure, save you about 100 pounds. But while you're on the subject of it, a little bit different intake, just a revamp of the design would go a long way, as long as the car, again, like you say, drops about 2 bills in terms of weight. I get it. It's a big car. Big things weigh a lot. That's perfectly understandable, but in this day and age, we need a little bit of a weight savings. And if 100 pounds of that comes from the block itself, really another 100 pounds, you can take that out of this car. So figure it out, but lose 200 pounds and have better weight transfer with that aluminum block, and then kick it up a little bit. A little bit of a revised intake manifold. You can kick the horsepower up, forego a little bit of that torque if you just make the right decision, and have ZF make a 331 rear gear set, 327 rear gear set, whatever the case is. Move away from the 309, go 323, 327, 331, something in that range. That's all you got to do. Once that is done, let her rip. You're going to have a car now that is going to accidentally run 1180s and 1170s. Prepped on a track that's in low DA, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere around 1130s with a drag pack. That is really where you're going to want to be. Add to that maybe a little bit more sophisticated launch control to work with the extra torque that you're putting to the rear wheels because gear multiplication. And now look at what you've got. You've got a legitimate contender that doesn't have to make any excuses for high ring lands and, you know, tight ring gaps and everything else because it's an NA car. You go, look, not only is this thing NA, don't worry about putting a blower on. If you want something with a blower, they sell those things. This is an NA ripper that, by the way, will put practically everything, if not everything, from the factory, from anybody's factory, NA on the trailer. It's that simple. So for me, that's what I would personally like to see. I don't really need to see more displacement. I need to see smarter utilization of what they already have. Smarter utilization of the existing technology, smarter utilization of the existing platform, and a willingness to make a car that is competitive for the NA guys. See, here's the problem. When you start to break this down and you start to break down what these talking heads have said about growing into the brand and growing through the brand, the problem with that is that they're only giving folks the stratosphere to grow to. And I'm sorry, but I can't afford it. I honestly, I can't. So why not, for those guys that, you know, their stratosphere may be a little bit lower financially, give them something, give the market something, give naturally aspirated guys something to aspire to. And you can make that part of the ad slogan. Here, it's yours for free. You know, that's part of the aspiration, that naturally aspired engine. Make that the top of the rung. Make that a priority so that I can make the NA cars a priority just to even speak on. Because listen, let's be honest here. When you're talking about these cars and you're talking about what you're looking at on the internets and whatever, you always get gravitated or at least drug into the supercharged platforms. And it's really annoying because try affording one of those things. So in other words, do the NA guys a solid and make something that is going to work for everyone. And again, it doesn't have to be the cheapest model of the group. I get this is an expensive proposition, but it's a proposition that for the guy that doesn't want supercharged or that can't afford supercharged, this is the next best thing. And it quite honestly might not ever get done because it would put a scalding on a lot of Hellcats, especially if I get my hands on it. Dr. Diff, how about that high roller, huh? So a little bit late coming on. Dr. Diff and I were on the phone a little bit. Got to listen about the latest camshaft grind, the high roller. If you guys, so when we work together and I put together camshafts, when I name them, there's always a lot of different meanings in that camshaft. I'll get to all the different meanings on the high roller. But anyway, it looks like that kid is literally came out screaming and looking forward to getting the final impressions of that cam. But she's about as big of a cam as I would want to see somebody put in a 392 for the street at the stock compression ratio, roughly 11-to-1, utilizing a ported version of the 6.4 manifold. So can't wait to hear it. Can't wait to see how she does, because that thing is, I mean, like I say, when it's max effort, it's not only max effort, but it's going to be max effort on the tuning side too. But I know that Dr. Diff will be able to get that squared away. He's already got it well on its way too. Oh, Shawnee's saying he saw his first C8 at the drag strip on last Saturday. It was so busy, but I heard he was running 11s. I think I like them a bit more than you do. You know, like I say, not to belay the point, but it's just I'm having a hard time falling in love with it. And I think that I was maybe initially kind of a little bit fluttery about it, mainly because it had the Zora connection and all of that. But look, I don't dislike it. I'm not hating on the car by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that, damn, the C7 was so good for what it was. And of course, you know, the C8's going to have some teething problems. Let's get through that and see what really pops out on the back end of this. But man, I know it does acceleration really well. I know it does so many things so well, but I'm just having a hard time falling in love with it. Mark's checking and saying, what I want from Mopar is an SRT revival. And like you once said, a pissed off NA57 making 400 plus horsepower. You know, the thing is make the scat packages legitimate. I mean, you never hear marketing for the scat packages, and it's not difficult to put a 5.7 into that power level. But what I would like to see is just that, the ability to have this pissed off 400 plus horsepower 5.7, but have the same marketing behind it that seems to be that they seem to cradle everything else with. And I guess the real issue that I have here is that Mopar has a funny habit of always relying on nostalgia, looking backwards to move forwards, right? The scat packages are a major portion of that. And the problem that I have is that they're simply not marketing that well enough. And I know it's weird to complain about marketing, right? Like, how are you going to complain about marketing when there's a perfectly good car to complain about, right? Just there, right? The reason why I will take that tact is because Mopar as a brand, not just the Mopar parts division, but they know what they're doing. When we're talking about Mopar, they know what we're talking about. The thing is that it's so heavily marketed through nostalgia that you almost get the sense that you're buying into a lifestyle. Again, y'all heard me make the Harley Davidson reference, where you're buying into a lifestyle. You go to a Harley dealership, you've got motorcycles. They got, say, 30 bikes in the showroom. But damn if they don't have about 100 t-shirts, 100 jackets, chaps, boots, head scarf things, whatever. They've got more of that. They've got more lifestyle than they do the actual thing that you would be riding around on. And that's in a way what Dodge has kind of done, with the weird portion of that, though, being that they haven't capitalized on it, in my opinion, enough. Throw the scat packages, out there, market the thing, have showrooms, have gear, have all of that, because that's what folks expect from Mopar. Listen, if I go to the circus, I want to see the sideshow as well as the main event. Best stuff's going on in the sideshow, by the way. Smart word to the wise there. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the entire event. Don't just, show me the elephant, walking around on a bicycle or whatever they do. I don't even have been to the freaking circus in 100 years, but you get the idea. And that's part of that I want to see as well. Some Ferrari guys saying even the C7s are staying 40 grand plus for nice used ones, because a lot of people prefer that thing. Dale checking in saying, hi, new here from Wales and UK. Hey man, thanks for hanging out with us here in Southeast Texas. Saying, check my content out. We'll take a look at it. Dr. Div saying, I like the C8 and want one so bad, but I'm going to stay with my Mopar. I'd go broke on a C8. Man, true of us all, and that's part of the problem, right? Shawnee's saying, C8 looks like a poor man's Ferrari. I happen to like Ferrari, so there's that. Well, it has that look, right? It's got the look. But the problem with having the look in this case is that the look is still a little bit Corvette-y, if you know what I'm saying. Look at the back of the car. It still is drag, and that's another part of it. The rear of the car still has the 4 taillight thing going on. It's what it looks like is it looks like what a kid's idea would have been if you said, okay, draw me a rear engine Corvette. Instead of being a clean slate and having the looks of something that is standalone and separate, you've got a little bit of Corvette in the tail. You've got a little bit, too much I may add, Corvette in the nose of the thing. It kind of looks like somebody took a C7, stretched it, took the engine out of the front, pushed it to the back, and then squished the nose up a little bit, which is fine. It's not a critique. I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. It sounds like a good thing, but what I was hoping for was to have the C8 really have its own identity. And I guess that's another reason why I'm having such a hard time getting on board with the costing of the thing. I'm not saying it was phoned in terms of styling. It's just too predictable. I'm like, I don't know, a little bit cringy, I guess. Alex is saying, I was just about to start going back to cars and coffee this month, but I just learned I might have been exposed to COVID. To hell with 2020, dude. I'm pretty sure I have been a couple of times, probably more than that. Probably all of us have, to some extent. I know that, with the schools opening back up, that uptick is coming, and it just it's on its way. Keep wearing those masks, guys. Keep washing your hands. Keep your hand sanitizer at the ready. Hilton Mode saying, I still say we need a Hellcat dart. That would actually make for a really cool drag pack setup. Dr. Diff saying, yep, snatch it from them with a Mopar Viper with either a red-eye Hellcat or a Hellcat. Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, think of what you can do with Viper. Think of what, let's getting back to the brand of Viper. Think of what you can do with that. You can take, and because though the V10's gone, by the way, I hope y'all understand that, it's been nice having it, but I just cannot see them bringing that back. In fact, again, when I've had the conversation before on the V10 with folks that were kind of in the know, it was, yeah, the V10 doesn't have legs long term, and it shouldn't, because God, I hate to say this, but an 8-liter plus engine making 650 horsepower in this environment is not good. Dr. said that should be the future Viper. Hit the like button. Oh yeah, hit the like button, guys. Shawnee's saying, what was the last affordable Corvette in your opinion? C5 or C6? The last desirable affordable car would have been the C6. The C6 is just better than the C5 in my opinion all the way around. Better powertrain options, the whole bit. I would say C6 would have been the last one. C7 was pushing it. And the only reason why I really say the C7 was pushing it, you could still get into a C7 for 55-ish. And but the only problem with that is that it was the Stingray, and it's just the stance of the thing, the width of the rear, that just never really did anything for me. But you take a look at like a Grand Sport C6, man, that's a good looking car. That is a real good looking car, and the upshot on that thing is strong. Kobe's saying, I would love to see all car companies get the prices down on all cars. Man, look, let me tell you this. One of the issues is, all the safety and the computers and the this and the that. All of that adds to the final bottom dollar of these things. And, I don't know what kind of margins these manufacturers are running off of, but, they ain't going out of business, because look at how much they're selling still to this day, given the fact that the cars do represent such a significantly higher portion of the median income. Back in the day, way back in the day, like in the great historic, muscle car era, most people made around $5,500 a year. That was kind of the average yearly income. And cars would cost about half of that, $2,500-ish. Would get you into basically something that gets you back and forth to work. An expensive car, would have been 44 grand. But, if you're a single guy and you're making the normal amount of money and you want a hot car, you could afford it technically. Well, fast forward to today. I mean, I think the average cost of a car is 35 grand or something like that, maybe 36. Either way, let's go with that. Interesting, but the conversion is actually tenfold almost, say from 1970 to 2020. So when you look at it from that point of view, average income is $55,000. Now the cars cost 36, where they were 25. So it represents a significant investment on the part of the buyer to buy the new car. Not to mention, you just simply have more bills today. You got cable bills, you've got Netflix, you've got cell phones and internets and whatever else you got, all this other electronic gadgetry, that's costing you money too. So, oh yeah, and let's also not forget that the car hobby doesn't really exist like it did back then either. I mean, you can get into the tuning thing if you want. There's some other things that you can do within the lifestyle. True, don't get me wrong, it's not dead by any means. In fact, it's breathing just fine. But it's not quite what it used to be. And, you know, back then, people would buy those cars specifically because they wanted to be a part in, were already a part of the lifestyle. Well, nowadays, that lifestyle really doesn't exist like it used to, just because there's other avenues for entertainment. Not to mention, your conveyance doesn't really mean anything to anybody but the person behind the wheel, really, like it used to. Back then, that your means of getting somewhere was a statement piece. It's just not like that anymore. So there you go. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, weather is deteriorating fast around here. I might have to live in my 1014 until the spring. I'm coming back in the spring with at least 100 pounds lighter setup. I like it. Shawnee's saying, I'm not giving up until I have that 990 slip. So yeah, so we've got Spring Nationals coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend, which is to say that the Spring Nationals got moved to not this weekend, but next weekend, which means that our track is going to be shut down this weekend for maintenance, basically bringing it up to snuff for the Nationals, which is understandable. But it sucks because we've got one of the awesomest days ever is going to be this Friday. And can't get the car to the drag strip. Wouldn't really matter that much anyway. I mean, those guys sitting right back over there are shot. I'm still waiting for my tires to show up. Looks like my limbo, my time in tire limbo, I should say, is coming down just a little bit. Latest report is that Mickey Thompson should have my tires ready sometime around the end of this month, end of October. So we'll see. You know, if you're watching this and it's in the future, I guess the question is, did my tires ever show up? Comment when they showed up. Is there anybody from the future watching this? Anyway, the point of it is, a buddy of mine, Chris, Orange Crush owner, has got a set of tires that I could borrow, but I'm worried that the tires that I've ordered, for if any reason they don't show up, I want to make sure that those tires are fresh enough to where I can run them in January. So I've just got to sit back and kind of rock back and forth and know that there's really nothing I can do anyway. So yay. The struggle is real. Okay. Sean's asking, does your 89 make you want to try to get a time slip with that 5-speed, or are you too spoiled with the 8-speed now? I'll be honest with you. Watch a couple of the videos that I've put out with me playing around with it. You know, it's like riding a bicycle. This thing, it would be a ride. It does need a trans rebuild, but the skill set's still there, brother. I mean, I'm banging gears like I haven't missed a step. Yeah, if I didn't have to get the trans rebuilt, I would probably be thinking about putting a set of tires on the car and just going out there and having fun. But my problem is going out there and having fun isn't quite like it used to be. I mean, now it would be drag pack, bias ply front and rear. Launch the thing at about, I don't know, rev limiter. I mean, and I just don't want to beat the hell out of the car for no, you know, especially in a high traction condition like that. I just don't want to sting this thing that hard. It is far too much fun to play with it on the street. And, man, I got to tell you, I don't want to start putting numbers on this car. That Revlon, aka the Mistress, aka Red Alert, I don't mind that car being defined by its numbers because, well, that's kind of what I do with that car. But with Foxy, it's a different story. And in fact, Foxy kind of walks in lockstep with my wife's Camaro. By the way, I drove the Camaro today. That car puts a dumb ass grin on my face. When you have a car that you know doesn't make any power, but will still bark second on the odd occasion that it does, it will bark second, and you feel like you've accomplished something. I bark second gear, Anyway, I just put brand new rear tires on it. Had to go play around with it, lit the tires up, barked second gear. I'm a happy camper. But it's stuff like that. I don't want to start associating a number with something that doesn't exist to make a number for me. This thing is here because number one, it's my first ever Fox body, but number two, and probably more to the point, it represents everything that I learned how to do, I learned on this car, which is to say that I've forgotten a bunch of stuff apparently. And what I thought I knew how to do, by the way, I know a lot of you guys can relate with this. A lot of what I thought I knew how to do, maybe I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just kind of lucked into doing something, or lucked into a result that maybe I shouldn't have. So anyway, I'm going back and I'm playing around with these things, and it's just such a different experience now that I don't really want to let that portion of the experience go. Well, and is that to say that it'll never hit the drag strip? I would never say never. Because the minute I say never about something only means that it will have been done by the time that word never turns 6 months old. But I will say this thing is just far too much fun, and I'm enjoying it way too much not taking it to the drag strip. In fact, when the drag strip's closed, or because of some concert thing, or winter, spring, summer, fall nationals, whatever we're gonna have, I just hop in the Foxy and I go playing around with Foxy, and I completely forget about everything else, including my problems. See, Sam's saying, I'm thinking about going to Copart and getting a cheap V8, either an LX platform with all-wheel drive or something with an LS. Well, be careful about the Copart stuff because a lot of those are flood cars. And what seems like a smoking deal today is going to be a flaming nightmare, say in about a year. Let the wiring just start to deteriorate and degrade just enough to where things weirdly stop working, but only intermittently. I'm not saying you can't do it, and I'm not saying it can't be done. Just know that there's a lot of things that you're going to have to do. If you're looking to get Copart stuff, make sure it's not a flood. Katie's asking, does Foxy have a stock T5 or does it have a Tremec? It has a Tremec made. No, it may still be Borg Warner. It is an old ass world-class T5 is what's in this thing. And it's on its first rebuild, which was done about 15 years ago. Alex is asking, Sam, if you want cheap V8 power, then LS is your friend. LS is your best friend if that's the direction you want to go. Although it's not as cheap as a lot of folks want to make it out once you start getting into heads, cam, intake, stuff like that. If you stay smart, stay smart with it, you can get away with a lot for cheap. Let's see. Oh, Michael's checking in and saying, just got a Challenger TA and F8 green. Pretty car. You're going to like that a lot. Sam Crab was saying, cheap V8 used to be a P71. Now you can find all-wheel drive Pursuit Chargers. I think it would be cool, though. Cam and boost and all-wheel drive Charger. Yeah, just be careful with those things. They're known to have a lot of idle time on them, and it is rare for one of those cars to only have had one camshaft replaced. Just know that coming into this. Sean saying, I love the TA, nice purchase, and the white gauges are the bomb. I like it. Ken797 saying, slant six twin turbo, modern nostalgia. I tell you what, Dodge Ram in particular was, I don't know if they're still, I don't know how deep they are into it, but for the trucks, we're looking at inline six and inline six turbos to potentially replace the V6 and the Hemis. Now, or at least be an augment to the engine family. I would love to see inline six turbo find its way into one of these trucks. That would be stupid awesome. Because that means our fleet trucks would all be inline six turbos. And then I would have no choice but to hot ride the factory. It was my work truck. Sam saying the C8 should have been called the Corvair. And only if the price was low enough. Those things are spooky expensive. Michael saying Mopar cold air intake too. Nice. Let's see. BB saying, what is the best time to start live stream chat? I usually chime in around 9 to 9:30. Sam saying, make a true V10 flagship twin turbos and hybrid Viper. Yeah, that way nobody could ever avoid it. Can avoid it. Arthur Wall saying, B. Mason, got the bald guy and the arm flex saying, what's up from Las Vegas? I've been a sub for almost 2 years. Man, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I miss Las Vegas too. Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. Anthony G saying, please bring back the Viper. I agree with that. Anthony saying, I don't care, just bring it back. Saying, I won't be able to afford it. Yeah, but you know what? Even though you're not available to afford it, you can at least appreciate it. You can see it in the showroom. You might be going in there to buy a beater to get back and forth to work, but, or like, in other words, a truck. But, that spirit is there, that brand identity rides with that. And it's interesting too, because, we've had the Hellcat or Hellcat variants now for a while. I mean, not for nothing, but it's 2020. 2015 seems like it was so long ago, but it's only been 5 years. And you would think, well, what would come that quickly? What kind of turnaround would we be looking at? Well, when you start looking at how quickly Mustang seems to turn its inventory, at least what I'm meaning by that is what they would consider to be the latest model, that model configuration only seems to last about 5 years. In fact, I think they're probably due for another turn on that. Yeah, I would say that we're kind of due for something new in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering, I guess. Just give us a direction that you're going. Give us an idea. I don't want to hear about CUDA. I only want to hear about the cool stuff. Viper, oh yeah, SRT, RT trucks. Would love to see that make a comeback, but get it? Damn. That was a little bit quicker than me. Sam saying a 1967 Firebird with an auto and a 326 was only $2,400. Now trying to find one for that. Well, you won't find fenders for that much. Let's see. Are they saying, B. Mason, have you heard of Sneaky Snake, South Texas, 9-liter Viper? He blew his cammed, built 8.4 and replaced it with a 9-liter. I've heard of a lot of guys with stroker kits with those. 540 cubic inch motors are not that, there for a while. I mean, they're fairly common, especially for the guys that were running nitrous. You would see a lot of those. You'd see some at 2K, a lot of them, going out hitting, Mexico. But haven't seen that one in particular, but I am familiar with the package. Let's see. Kobe's asking, do you think a red-eye torque converter, if you could get one, would help the 60-foot on a 707 Hellcat, or 707 horse Hellcat? Not really. It's practically the same converter. You just got more torque, so it's able to flash it a little bit higher, but not particularly. If you really want to help the 60-foot on a Hellcat, don't worry about the converter. Put the gear in it. Put the 309 gear in it, and throw a pedal commander in it just so that you get some of that throttle response, or at least the feeling underfoot back from that. and you're done. You're golden. You're set. Rock out, because that is like the accidental red-eyifying your Hellcat comes with that gear. I mean, that's really what makes the difference. And to be honest with you guys, you know, yeah, I've tuned my transmission and I've done some things to the engine tune to basically help to, I don't know, work with that transmission tune. But the main thing I did was just, it's all gearing, because my stock, my timing values, and this has been peer reviewed, by the way. He's on the live show now. Doc Div's seen the tune. My timing values are stock all the way across, except for at the very far right on the table, and really only in air values that are, or RPM values, which are concurrent with the RPM that I'm running with the trans tune. But I wasn't like that forever. In fact, it was fairly recently when I started playing with even that portion of it. Throw some fuel at it and you're done. You don't even need to do that. Gear, pedal commander, call it good. And if you want to take the thing to the drag strip, you can. It'll only yip a shift if you really get into deep, low density altitude conditions. What's not to love? Oh, and you'll be giving red eyes the red ass all the way down the drag strip too. Just saying, guys. Let's see. Brendan's saying, getting Dark Star 17s for my 2020 Challenger Hellcat. Should I go with the 275s or 305s? Would I need the end links for the 305s? It's not the tires that necessitate the end links. It's the wheel, the actual barrel diameter. Some are more sensitive to it than others. I would say go ahead and get the end links either way. You're spending the money. Just go ahead and do it right. It doesn't take you 5 minutes to swap those things out. I would say go with the 305s. I like the way that the 305s hook. The 305s give you a little bit of wiggle room with iffy track prep. But yeah, I would say go with the 305, 45, 17s if you're going to go that route. Now, that being said, good luck getting your hands on any. If you're a stock Hellcat and you're running the stock gear, you may be able to get away with 275, I think it'd be 275.50 if I'm not mistaken. Fact check that. 17s. In other words, you basically want it to be about 28 inches tall in terms of tire height. If you got the stock gear and you're running at full weight, you can probably get away with that. But I would prefer to see 305s on the back. Dan's asking, do you know of a top cover for a factory shaker air filter box? It seems to me like the IATs would drop significantly, especially when stationary. That's part of the problem of having one of those cars, is that when you're stationary, everything is left exposed. And trust me, the IATs drop like that once you start moving, but you've got to be moving for the IATs to drop. So that being said, no, I'm not familiar with anything like that, unfortunately. But, you know, main thing is just to know that that's going to be part of an issue that you may have, is just, you know, elevated IATs at idle, especially for idling for any real length of time. But it'll dump temperature quickly, believe me when I say that. Sam's saying small displacement V10 with turbos in a hybrid drive. Here's the problem with that. So when you look at that portion of the wish list, number one, the cost of it goes through the roof, and it puts it into a stratosphere that is not very Corvette-like, kind of, at least to follow my argument and the logic of my argument. And part of that means that you can't have an engine or an engine combination that isn't able to cross-pollinate. You use a Hellcat platform, Hellephant, which, by the way, does have an aluminum block. Weird. Anyway, you use a platform like that, you can use it for the LX platform. You can use it for the Viper. You could use it for the truck. Hint, hint. You could use, you know, RT, Hellcat truck. How is there not a Little Red Express, more to the point, put that one aside, Why is there not a Warlock to go along with the Hellcat, the Demon, the Red Eye? Why not a Warlock, the truck? It just blows my mind. Single cab, short bed. It'd be really crazy if they made a long bed, but that didn't exist. Anyway, single cab, short bed. Anyway, you guys know where I just get complete, like, it absolutely blows my mind that doesn't exist from Mopar. Anyway, getting back to it. Hilton Mode's asking, what's your favorite pedal commander settings? When I had the pedal commander in my E63, I liked Sport Plus and I liked Eco. Those were my two favorite modes. I would switch back and forth depending on what my mood was. If I was just out kind of chilling, cruising, going to dinner, something laid back or cool, I would just put it in Eco mode and just cruise. If I was out wanting to play around with the thing, I'd go Sport Plus and hit it from there. I didn't like Sport Plus all the way up. I would typically go like into Sport or just the one after that. I think when I had mine, they had 3 up and 3 down. And then they had the normal, just the flat pedal mode, just the stock profile. That's basically what I would do with mine though, is I would go Sport Plus and then like Eco Plus on the other side. Arthur Walls saying, saw the video of you data logging the 5.0 with the old LM2, just awesome. Yeah, no, so for sure, LM2 still in there rocking. The ashtray's still full of change, man. And yes, I will absolutely blame any weird noise on that ashtray full of change, because there's no way there's anything wrong with that, right? And he's saying, good evening, sir. Wondering if you'd seen Uncle Tony's latest video on the intrinsic design defect with the Gen 3 Hemi reemphasized. I'd love to hear your comments. So I've seen that, and the problem with where he's coming with that, well, he's onto something. I mean, there may be something to think about. He was talking about the angle of the roller, angle of the lifter, and the roller is just really not ever being able to get any oil to them. I think that's an oversimplification of that. I think that it's a kind of a multi-headed, multi-tiered set of problems. None the least of which is the things that he had pointed out. The problem though is that, so our fleet trucks, we've got 27 tradesman Hemi trucks in the fleet. Mine has 100,000 miles on it, and it's a baby compared to what most guys have on theirs. All of them are 2017s. Average mileage on these things is somewhere around 170-ish, maybe 180 at this point. I'd say somewhere close to that. So you would think that, man, those things get driven a lot. And it's true, they do. But the thing is that for the ones that don't get driven a ton, and by the way, the more that they're driven, the better that they run. The ones that maybe have 120, maybe spend a lot of time on job sites, idling, we're not running into the same problems. And it's still the same engine design. So, in saying that, you've got the later cruisers, police cruisers really weren't running into the same issues. So maybe because of the design, they needed to redesign the lifters to be more robust. I don't know, hard to say, but I see where he's going with that. I don't think that he's wrong. I just think that that's one of the reasons. There's other reasons I think that are stacked in there as well. So, and I'm also kind of surprised that nobody's come up with just a more of an inherent fix to that. If that is the issue, if that is the problem, I'm just surprised at that. But again, like I say, we've got some of these trucks with a boatload of miles that see nothing but pretty much wide open throttle use. I think some of these guys, like I say, I've got my truck that just turned a little over 100,000 miles, just had the Hemi tick thing fixed. That was manifold bolts, but no sign of any issues with the lifters. And at this stage of the game, my old truck had already had a cam and lifters replaced. So, no, I'm sorry, just the lifters, no cam was replaced. Let's see. Mustang Lab. Hey man, glad to see you after the eclipse caught fire. We can have any beer we like. Nice. Dan saying, I've experimented with covering the airbox top with locally procured materials, cardboard, and I saw a noticeable reduction in IATs at idle. Where would you go to find a vendor to fab a cap? I'm not sure. I would probably say you'd almost have to make a polymer cap, but I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure, but check it out. I mean, like I say, you might be onto something there. But again, you got to look at it from the point of view of, will it protect IATs when the thing's just sitting there idling when the fans kick on? Because the biggest issue with the regular airbox is that the fan, it's a dual fan setup on your car, and the fan wash just hammers that air tube, which has the air temperature sensor sitting right there in it. So, that could be part of the problem as well. Not only are you heat soaking the whole area that you're working on, you're kind of heat soaking the sensor. That's why I had relocated my sensor to the airbox, and it seemed to have a better, it was more of a consistent reading also. Mustang Lab saying Vin Diesel, absolutely. See, Don saying, hey, B, got a strange question. Does the motor mount have fluid in them? I don't think so. Got a leak on the driver's side, 392 Challenger only spot that's wet. I'm not sure. I don't think that it does. I don't think these are fluid-filled mounts. Could be wrong about that, but I've never played with those mounts. But I don't believe that they are. D's saying, oh, PAG 99's in the house. Nice. Calisan High's asking, what's your opinion of a Whipple 3.0 on a Mustang? I think that if you've got everything else done to the Mustang to support the Whipple, you'll be in pretty good shape. The problem is that you can't just throw a 3.0 Whipple on a Mustang. By the way, that new 3.0 Whipple is nasty. But you can't just, well, you can. It's just that the longevity of your entire powertrain is going to be significantly reduced. The problem that guys have is that they'll misunderstand the ability to put a blower on your car with is it a very good idea to do it without, the usual suspects. You got to have exhaust already on board, ready to go, at least. Secondly, you're going to need oil pump gears because you're going to want to turn the thing, because she's going to want to turn up top. Thirdly, though, is don't forget your transmission is not made out of unobtainium. This stuff is going to have to get rebuilt or at least beefed up a little bit to manage the type of power that you're looking to make with it. Because, guys, let's be honest. If you're going to put a blower on a Mustang, you're not putting a blower on a Mustang to run 1070s, okay? You're putting a blower on a Mustang to go run 9s at least. So, the rest of the package has got to be able to be fit enough to manage the power that you're going to be putting through it. So listen, as long as you've got the half shafts, the drive shaft, you got everything there to support what that Whipple promises to give you in terms of performance, I say go for it. And again, you will absolutely accidentally run 9s with that package. I just can't tell you for how long, because look, I can't tell you how many times this happens, but it happens to happen a lot. Guy gets Mustang. Guy buys supercharger to put on Mustang, gets drag pack, has big smile on face, takes to drag strip, and kablooey. And that's a bit of a problem. But again, it does happen. And the reason why it happens is because the Coyote platform is unique in a way that it will seemingly keep making power until something blows out the side of the block. They don't ever really seem to ever have a cap. You know, you get to a certain level and then you just add more boost, put a fuel system in it, run E50, run E85, whatever. They don't ever seem to let up until they let go. So that's the scary part of that proposition. But that's also, you know, again, every combination has its strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times, the strength that you're talking about could actually represent the weakness. And in this case, that's exactly what we're talking about. So if you've got everything there to support that 3.0 and really do it the right way, don't put the 3.0 on the Mustang and go, I'm going to go run a 1050. That isn't gonna, you're not getting near the potential that you should be out of that engine. And by the way, don't think that because you're running 1050s that it's safe. It doesn't work like that. Look, yeah, it takes significantly more power to run a 990 or a 980 than it does to run a 1050 weight for weight. I get that. But here's the thing. To run a 1050, it takes a lot of power. And you're going to be stressing everything downstream. Better to have everything ready to go and have it set up to run 970s, 950s, whatever number you want to run in the 9s, the right way with the beefy parts, which are safer, by the way, than to go out there and detune, which you don't ever want to, it's just, but anyway, detune that 9-second car to 1050s thinking that it's safer. It's still loading those parts significantly more than they were ever designed to. Oh, and by the way, it's now positive displacement, and everywhere you didn't have torque before, now you do. So those parts that weren't designed for maybe 50%, or let's say 20% or 30% more torque, now have to deal with 50% more torque. See where I'm going with that? So I like it, but I like it when it's done right. Dan saying if all the air intake is coming from the shaker, headlamp duct, and the hole at the bottom of the air box, I would think that the impact from underhood heat would be mitigated. It kind of is, but you got to remember that the shaker and the hole and everything else, there's no real velocity going through there at idle. So, and realistically, once you whack the throttle, the temperature issue kind of goes away quickly. So, I tell you what, don't look too far into that. You've got the best stock induction system with that shaker. Just let that thing do its thing, and I really wouldn't worry too much about it unless you want to tinker with it and see what you can come up with. And in that case, by all means, go for it. But there's a lot of folks that are doing really well. In fact, truth be told, when I was running the streets with my SRT, I kind of wished I'd have gotten a shaker. So, see Dan saying, you have more pull than I do. Get someone to fab a housing cat. Help a brother out. Man, I wish I had some pull. That would be super cool, but I don't. What is MG42? NASA, not a space agency, just the Hollywood for the gullible. Yeah, no, we didn't do anything like, rockets aren't real. Scott saying, great stream as usual. Any chance of you moving to Colorado and become my favorite garage neighbor? I own a stock 2016 RT shaker. Is there a tune you would suggest and the guesstimate on cost? Well, I mean, the tune, I would say, well, if you're living in Colorado, give our RPM, which is in Denver, give them a shout. They, what the heck, I cannot, I'm so bad with names. Anyway, he can get you squared away. He's up in Colorado, and he knows. And as soon as the live show's over, I'll remember his name. God, I can't believe this. I had lunch with the guy. Anyway, give RPM Denver a shot. He can get you squared away. Cost-wise, I'm not sure what the going rate is up there, but with the unlock, the tune for the engine and the transmission all together, you're probably looking at probably around $1,500. Let's see. Mustang Lab saying, can we get a real quick under hood inside? And you ain't getting nothing inside of my Fox. That thing's a mess right now. But I can give you an under hood right now. That's easy to do. Let's see. There it is. Ooh, let's see. There you go. So GT40 intake, AFR 185s, F-cam. That's the setup, basically. Would make a great truck motor. I'll put it to you that way. Makes a lot of torque, a lot of tip-in torque, and that was kind of the idea with that car. So the initial deal with Foxy was that it had a blower on it, had a little Powerdyne supercharger on it, had a ball with that thing. B-cam, F-cam, 1.7s, that intake, upper, obviously not the lower, because now it's a 351. And what had happened is along the way decided that, you know, going to step it up a little bit, probably go in an S trim at the time. And 351 was going to be a bit more robust. These heads had just come out, the AFR 185s. These are the big chambers. And 351 block, lightning block, what's not to love? So it's a lightning block with a lightning lower. The problem was that the car with that setup was so much fun, and it was so much cleaner and easier to, you know, work around, that the blower just never made it back onto the car. And so it's, you know, basically it's set up to be ready for a blower. Fairly low compression ratio, just south of 9:1, but a lot of velocity through the intake manifold. It's got a scatterproof bell housing, truck carrier, 31 spline truck carrier, world-class T5, which would probably have been swapped out for a 3550 at that time, or later upgraded with Astro internals or G-Force internals. But that was pretty much it in a nutshell. It would have had a fuel pump upgrade and a couple of other things to keep up with it. But man, it was just so much fun, and it's so just snappy and everything. Just decided, well, screw the blower, just leave it alone and just play with it. So that is her in a nutshell. Back in the day, I mean, it's back in the day fast. On the Mustang dyno, on an eddy current dyno with the tune that I put on it, that I'm still kind of toying with a little bit. It made right at, what was it, like 295 or what, something like that, horsepower, and like 336 torque. And that's on a Mustang dyno. So you figure on a dyno jet, that would have been 330-ish. With, I don't know, with like 340, 350 torque. Like I say, it makes a bunch of torque. Tip-in torque is real fun with this car. Mustang Labs asking, what do you think of the SRT 300? I think they're awesome, and I love them. And I wish that we had the latest, like the version that the Aussies get. We'd love to have a left-hand drive version of that here, but for some reason, we just don't have it. So Ferrari's asking how many, maybe saying hours would it take for a good shop to install Paxton 2200 on a 5.0? Not sure about that, because again, we're starting to get into, you know, absolute outright hours, but I would say somewhere between 14 and 16 is what's going to show up on your build sheet. Joshua's asking, AB, what is the most power you can get from a Hellcat on pump gas? Also, what would it take to get there? Oh, before I answer that one, you know, the Paxton deal, that may not include the fuel system too. You probably would want to look into that. But I would say 16-ish, somewhere in that range. So what's the most power you can get from a stock Hellcat on pump gas? We're not going to include E85 in this pump gas, by the way, so don't try to caveat that. So I'm going to answer that by saying this. There's two different schools of thought on that. The first school of thought is stock is about the most you can make on pump gas. The reality, though, is that if you add fuel to the stock tune, leave stock timing right where it's at, you will still, on occasion, get, well, especially if you don't adjust knock sensor sensitivity significantly, you're still going to touch up on a little bit of short-term knock. I would say that, in my opinion, on a Mustang dyno, a 295 or a 3.0-ish range upper pulley is really all you would need, along with, pinning the crank, to get it to around 700-ish horsepower to the rear wheels. Anything more than that, and you are going to be relying on Boostang, Torco, a race gas mix, or something like that to keep everything a little bit happy. The problem is the weight of the car. They're just heavy, and because they're heavy, you got a lot of inertia to overcome. Plus, you got a positive displacement supercharger, which just exacerbates the whole problem because you've got instant cylinder pressure, which means you've got high cylinder pressure at low RPM, which means you've got a ton of dwell time at high pressure, which can, again, cause issues with pre-detonation. Or with detonation, I should say. Pre-ignition is the right word to use. So when you look at it from that point of view, that's about as far as you would want to go on 93 octane. And keep something in mind, it's not uncommon for guys to try to get away with more than that. And I know that there's plenty of folks that'll say, I run 275 upper and it never has any problems. Yeah, okay. Well, the fine print needs to read based on what altitude are we talking about? Because if we're talking about, somebody that's living at, say, 2,500 feet or 400 or 4,500 feet above sea level, you can get away with more pulley ratio, but you're still going to be dealing with how much power are you really putting to the rear wheels. And again, I'm going to argue that it's somewhere around that 700 horsepower-ish to the rear wheels. Again, some will argue 750. I mean, you're really starting to split hairs at that point. Some for our guys saying, also can't wait to start seeing those A10 Mach 1s hitting the strips, for sure. Ken797's asking, have you ever used VHT traction or PJ1 compound? Do you like it? I've used VHT, seemed to work pretty good. Haven't used the other one that I'm aware of. But to me, I didn't buy it, so if it's slick 'em, stick 'em, I'm using it. 60 Power saying his first Fox body setup was almost similar, and besides the intake was Cobra. Same cam and GT40X heads, good heads by the way, with 410 gears with a T5. Fun car. Callus99 saying, question about your Hellcat, is air mostly coming in through the hole in the headlight? No, it's coming in from the bottom of the assembly or underneath the car. If you put an air grabber or dual snorkel hood, would it help with the air intake? So probably not as much as you would think. It's there to think of that system really more to chill the incoming air that the car's already getting once it's underway. That's really what it's there to do. I wouldn't say that it's a gimmick because it kind of works, but no, if you look at the hole at the bottom of that thing, the hole at the bottom of that thing is about the size, it's like a triangle. It's like a big wedge of pie. It looks kind of like that, right? The hole in the front is only about this big around, but there's a lip in there, so it's really honestly only about that big around. It's not that there's not a lot to it, it's just that it's there to help, but it's a supplementation. It's not a primary source of the air intake. So when you take that into account, like the snorkel, perfect thing here, the snorkel it's only half of the hood that's working. So yeah, it helps, but it's not like the end all be all for intakes. Mustang Lab saying, on a Dynajet, my car made 251 horsepower with 351 torque. Not what I was impressed. No, I get it, man. Val's asking, do you think a 392 gear is overkill for the street in a 2013 RT? Not at all. I mean, you got to remember, a 2013 RT, you're going to be rocking that NAG 1, and a 370 gear is just going to, or a 392 gear is going to be aggressive, but for that car, RT NAG 1, I mean, it's going to be jumpy for sure, but you'd be all right with that. Now, I will say that it'll be a bit buzzy on the freeway. It'll be turning about $3,000 at 80 miles an hour. So there's that. We're doing a lot of road trips. I wouldn't suggest it. I go 373 and call it good. You're 370. 6'2" Emmy Powers asking, what are your thoughts on the incognito lower pulley claiming to compensate added boost without a tune? Also, I'm leaning to the Grip Tech 285 upper and 1050 injectors for a safe added horsepower. Well, first of all, the incognito thing, talking about the lower pulley claiming to compensate, the pulley isn't doing any compensating. Your computer will do whatever it can to hold the thing together, but let's walk this thing backwards. So first of all, incognito works. It adds, a couple of pounds of boost? Here's the problem. It depends on where you live. If you live at sea level, bad idea, and I'll get to the reasons why. But if you live in, again, I'll use Colorado as a jumping off point, you're already starting off basically 15% less available oxygen, meaning that engine is going to make about 15% less horsepower, pulley ratio to pulley ratio. What does that mean? Well, what it means is in the tune, you will be at a lower total airflow in the table than that exact same car picked up, taken to Houston, for example, or New Orleans, plopped onto a street, plopped onto a dyno, and they make the hit. The corrected number may be the same, but the actual green screen number is going to be significantly different from that pass in Colorado, which is again going to be at a KPA of say 85 versus a KPA of 100 at sea level. So when you start to play with the numbers a little bit, you'll see that, there's enough headroom provided the car is at a high enough altitude that you can run that pulley and probably not have any problems. Right up until you run that same car with no tune at sea level. That's when all hell breaks loose. Because if you run that car at sea level in very low density altitude conditions, what basically happens is you will move past an airflow value, which I've actually done with Revlon, which is stock boost. And what happens is it'll be able to read the airflow, but it won't reduce timing unless it gets into a situation with the knock sensors and it's starting to see something that it didn't want to see, and then it starts pulling timing. So there's that. The other nasty little thing that the knock sensors can do is they'll pick up on the fact that now something sounds different. The blower is just going to be noisier all the time because you're spinning it faster, which means that it could have more false knock. So you've got the potential for more real knock coupled with potential for more false knock. These aren't things that are leaning in your favor in terms of maintaining and making power. So to that point, Doc Diff had a Hellcat come into the shop and he data logged the car, and it had one of the Hellraiser 272s, I believe. That car, damn it, almost got him. That car was pulling 7 or 8 degrees of short-term knock retard. Now, was that because the blower was making more noise? Was that because the thing actually had short-term knock because it was that stock tune with that pulley at sea level? Don't know. But what I can tell you is that is a problem if you bought a part to make more power and now it makes less power because you have less timing because of reasons. So just know that coming into it. To put one of those pulleys, whether it's an upper or lower or what have you, on the car without a tune is really not even halfway to getting you where you need to be. You need the tune to be able to work around the extra noise that the blower is going to make so you don't get false knock from that. You need to be able to data log the thing so that if there is something weird going on, like, oh yeah, we almost forgot about one nasty little thing, injector duty cycle, which you need to be looking at, because with Revlon, with the stock cat overtemp settings and at those airflow numbers, you are going to be exceeding, at least at lower altitudes, 100% duty cycle on your injectors. Keep doing that, you're going to have a bad time. So what's happened before, and this is just the way that it is, in real low DA conditions, I have actually partially pegged an airflow table just based on what I've seen in the data log. And in the process of that, when this car had an absolute flat stock tune, I had seen 98 or so % injector duty cycle because of catalytic converter overtemp. You get into cat overtemp mode, the car starts going, oh, okay, I need to start throwing a lot of fuel at this thing to cool off the cats, but it doesn't have any more fuel to throw at it. I mean, it's just trying to ramp up pressure and it's trying to do whatever it can to throw whatever fuel at it that it can. Again, these are issues. Oh, and by the way, there's another little dirty secret that you might want to keep in at least your back pocket. So what happens is a lot of times guys will run their car light on fuel at the drag strip. And again, this would really apply if you're on a drag strip in lower DA conditions. Again, it's that lower DA that'll sting you. I know this because this has happened to me. Actually, it happened to me recently, and it was weird how it happened. So I'm going to walk you through both scenarios because this is an opportunity for us all to learn together. So what I did is ran the car at a little bit less than a quarter tank of gas. And what happens is it's kind of cutely named the fuel yip. You've got different yips that these cars will do. One's a 1-2 shift yip, which happens when basically predictive shift strategies freak out because of an acceleration. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're talking about fueling now. When you accelerate so hard that you launch the car, the fuel comes away from the fuel sock and it basically sucks in air. And so what happens is at some point during the run, the car will lay over for no real apparent reason. And what's happening is, and you'll see it on the data log, you've literally run the sock out of fuel and you basically have a very lean condition take place. And you'll see injector duty cycle peg, everything gets weird. The car goes into a partial limp mode to save itself, hopefully. But in leading up to that, there's a window of time where things are going very wrong in a very major way, and the computer is there to try to save everything. And it will if it stops boost. However, the second scenario, this is one that's kind of funny. So we had some real pretty weather come through here, and I was playing around with the tune on Little Miss Revlon over here, and I was at heavy partial throttle. I wasn't full throttle, but I was at fairly heavy throttle for a significant amount of time. Wasn't paying attention to my fuel levels. I was running around with about the same amount of fuel that happened with that quarter mile blast. Might have been a little bit less, and I fuel yipped it on the street at partial throttle, if you can believe that. So now let's take a look at how that scenario could potentially sting you. Now you've got more boost. You could potentially find yourself in that scenario more often if you don't pay attention to your fuel levels. It's something to think about with a stock car. It's something that can blow your car up if you're over boosting it. Now, obviously, you would need to be throwing more boost maybe than that Ripatune Incognito would give you, but maybe not. If it's a low DA day, things can go very wrong very quickly. So if you plan on getting one, quarter tank is now your reserve level, and get the thing tuned. Brent checking in saying, what's up, y'all? What's up, Brent? Mustang saying, is it hard to juggle Dodge, Ford, and the JDM market for race wars and the Fast and Furious movies? Nah, not when you're as skilled and talented as I am. And they were saying, why is it that the Demon needs race gasket 840 horsepower while Bugattis don't? And that makes 1,000 plus horsepower. Well, there's a couple of things going on there. The Bugattis, number one, have a significantly more sophisticated system working for them. That is a W16. I think it's a larger engine also, significantly larger engine. But that's part of it. It's just basically brake specific horsepower per cubic inch at that point. And the Bugattis make the most power on E85, I believe is how they're set up. So they don't necessarily run on race fuel. And I think their atmospheric pressures are pretty high on those things as well, like 16, 18 PSI. But again, fact check me on the boost. But yeah, take a look at the size of those engines, and that'll kind of give you an idea for what's going on in there. Let's see. Donnie Ortiz saying, what's up, B? I said last time that I am going for a dyno tune soon. My car is a cam, full bolt-on. Tuner is telling me 91 octane isn't safe and that he highly recommends E85. Your thoughts? Why wouldn't 91 octane? It's a naturally aspirated car. 91 octane will be fine. Yeah, in fact, 91 octane, you'll be perfectly fine. I mean, why wouldn't you be? 85 isn't necessarily going to get you much more anyway. He's going to try to throw more timing at it with the 85. He's going to find out that he's only going to pick up torque, and that is that could be a bit of a problem if you're paying for a tune. Like I say, 91 will be fine. Mustang Live saying, does anyone really like the tuna? Dude, everybody likes the tuna. He just said that because, well, I just said that because Brian was trying to mac on my sister. Calisana and I saying, will putting a chin spoiler on a scat pack help with more downforce or just help with making air go faster underneath the car? It really won't help so much with downforce. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of high speed stuff, I mean, it's already got a little bit of a spoiler there. I mean, if you want to put the lower on it, it may help you a little bit, but it's not going to help you, I think, by as much as you think. That platform is very stable, even at high speeds, the way it sits. Let's see. Oh, Brent's asking, Mr. Mason, any ideas on how to get his 392 Charger to run 1190s on a regular basis? It's 12 to 12.1 now with a trans tune and motor tune. Really, it's going to come down to weight reduction. A drag pack will certainly help you get there. Get all of the unnecessary stuff out of the car, and I think you'll be in good shape. Really, it does boil down to weight at that point. But yeah, I mean, and that's everything. If it's in the glove compartment, the console, get the floor mats out of the thing also. That's kind of a safety deal for me anyway. So yeah, do that and that'll certainly help. And obviously we've got cooler weather coming. So that's the other big thing that's going to help you. Cody Bass saying, hey, now that I'm back to work, not so many ideas going on with the Corolla. Gotcha. Cody saying VW for sure made Bugatti. Yeah, they did. Wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing, considering there's still a Bugatti to talk about. You know what I mean? That 426 asking, what stall converter should I get for a Gen 3 426? Circle. Hey, Catalyst 99. Thank you very much. It was right in the middle of me reading that, and that popped right up. Circle D or Paramount? Circle D. 3200 stall was recommended to me. Made 541 and 513. That is right up the alley of a Circle D. 3200 would be good. You know, if and at 541, your car it won't be too radical at that number. So yeah, I'd get a 3200. 3400 might be a little bit much. Let's see, and you are. And like I say, that would work for either transmission, either NAG1 or for the HP70. Cal99, thank you very much for the contribution to the cause, saying, what are your predictions for the 2022 models? Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to be looking at more of the same, if I'm being honest. I mean, you're not going to really see anything until 23 or 24. And to be real frank with you, I would venture a guess and say that FCA is going to pony up and will more than likely re-up their agreement with Mercedes-Benz on the LX platform. So I don't see that really going away anytime soon. Obviously, you're going to start seeing things like the TRX show up to the party. Maybe more SUVs. I don't know. I think the market is a little bit oversaturated with stuff like that, though. I mean, look at how many Jeep variants there are, and they're not very strong bearers of the flame, if you're asking me. I mean, you know, the Wrangler is good, and the Wrangler variants, the JX platforms, those are all fine and good, but I guess, you know, unfortunately, my crystal ball, I really can't see much past that 2022 year. A lot of folks were thinking that they being FCA, that they were going to maybe make some changes and start going with different platforms for the cars. But the way that Mopar, I'm going to say Mopar now instead of FCA, because that's really more to the point. The way that Dodge is being marketed on that level, I just don't see them changing too much anytime soon. I think that they've slid into a bit of a comfort zone, and they've slid into a bit of a market segment, I should say, that is incredibly robust, number one. And number two, they own the market for what they're making. So as long as they keep selling with the volume that they're selling, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. I think that they're going to maintain status quo. And if there is any changes, it'll be minor facelift style updates. My only hope is that some of the stuff will waterfall downstream a little bit, mainly have the NA guys get something, but then again, that's really more speculation and wishful thinking. 6'2", hit me power, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate the contribution, saying thank you for all your help, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution to the cause, my friend. I just wish I had more stuff to give you. Right now, like I say, we're in tire limbo. So, let's see. Madera's saying, forget Bucati. The Exorcist Camaro has 1,000 horsepower and doesn't need race fuel to do it, and it's no more sophisticated than the Demon, is it? No, but I think that one's running on E85 to get where it needs to be. I don't think that was on 93 octane. It might have been, but I can't remember that it was. And again, there's plenty of Hellcats that are running around that are, you know, over 1,000 horsepower. Look at Racer X's car. I mean, I delivered that car to him, drove it from Houston to Dallas, and the thing drove like a stock car because it basically is, except for a couple of pulleys and a fuel system and E85, and that's 1,000 horsepower to the flywheel. So you start getting into modifications, it doesn't take a lot of exotic tomfoolery to get you to that magic 1,000 horsepower number anymore. The idea, though, is to be able to do it reliably and to do it with an ability to warrant that product as well. Joshua, man, I appreciate that. Saying, love hanging out with you, bro, man. Love you hanging out with us, man. Thank you very much for the contribution. Truly appreciate it, man. I really do. Brent saying, thanks for the help. I hope I can hit that by the end of the season. Bet you can. Let's see. Cody saying, What would you recommend for stall converters for daily driving while giving a little more punch during a roll? 3,200 is about the number, I think. I think that's really the number that you're going to want to hover around without it getting too flashy down low. You get too much you get too much converter and it gets a little bit mushy. So that would be my suggestion. FCA needs to bring back the SRT4. Cody's in saying that. Callis is also saying, I'd like to see a Dart SRT4 with a turbo. I can agree with that one too. Well, guys, I have got to wake up crazy early in the morning. Coming up on almost an hour and 40 minutes. Got to check out. But I want to thank all y'all for hanging out with me tonight. Definitely appreciate that a ton. Stay safe out there, guys. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up, and I will catch y'all on the next one. And that is a wrap. Y'all take it easy. Adios.